Welcome to Guyana 411. This week we feature what occurred in 2015 in some of the critical sectors of government. We will look at Guyana's foreign policy, the work of Parliament, and developments in the natural resources and agriculture sectors. Stay with us. On June 10, 2015, the hallowed chambers of the Parliament were once again opened following its prorogation by the previous administration. This time around, a new government took control of the Parliament with the promise that there would be greater legislative autonomy. 7 months onwards, we take a look to see how much was achieved in the 11th Parliament.
It should be emphasized that every government is guided by a legislative agenda, since it is a working guide as to what it hopes to achieve for the nation and the people whom it governs. For the period June to December 2015, 19 sittings of the National Assembly were held that saw the tabling and passage of a number of critical pieces of legislation. One of the major highlights of this period was the presentation of the new government's inaugural $221 billion national budget, which was done by Finance Minister Winston Jordan on August 10, 2015.
I'm honored to present the first budget of this government. I'm humbled by the confidence reposed in me to execute this challenging but rewarding exercise. At the outset, let me thank the President, my colleague members of Parliament, and all those groups and individuals who responded to invitations to exchange views on the crafting of this budget. I also want to thank all those letter writers and the ordinary person in the street who approached me with advice and requests, especially for pension and wage increases. I assure you that your contributions are valued highly and that your efforts have not been without a listening or sympathetic ear.
The benefits outlined in the APNU-AFC's inaugural budget for the ordinary Guyanese is a testimony of the administration's emphasis and dedication to the alleviation of poverty and bringing a good life to all Guyanese.
All Guyanese yearn for the good life, one in which the country's patrimony is exploited in a sustainable and responsible manner that caters for future generations, where they have good jobs providing permanent incomes, where they have access to decent, affordable housing, healthcare, pure water, sanitation, and education, where they can live and retire comfortably and in a secure environment. Our government commits to providing that good life. It is for this reason, Mr. Speaker, that this first budget of the new APNU plus AFC administration has been structured under the theme, a fresh approach to the good life in a green economy.
Another major legislation presented, debated and passed in the National Assembly was the Local Government Amendment Bill, which allowed for the setting of a date for the hosting of local government elections in Guyana. Local government elections offer Guyanese the opportunity to deepen local government process and the opportunity for citizens to take control of their communities.
It is widely accepted that our local government system, that the stresses that have been placed under it have resulted in severely damaging the capacity of our local councils and degrading their capacity, leading to a general dysfunctionality with regards to their ability to discharge their responsibilities. It would not be unfair of me to say that the local government system, as a result of the many stresses that has been placed on it, has almost resulted in the collapse of that system. Therefore, it is the obligation and responsibility of the administration to fix that broken system.
It is believed that with the holding of the local government elections, communities will now be better developed as the Ministry of Communities intend to fully support the 7-to-1 local democratic organs in the effective execution of its mandate. Among the highlights for intense debates and deliberations in the National Assembly was the Anti-Money Laundering and Countering the Financing of Terrorism Bill, which was subsequently passed to make Guyana internationally compliant with the Financial Action Task Force recommendations.
And the amendment bill for the AML-CFT, sir, it's just 3 partially met recommendations that they're dealing with, that they know of, but what they failed to do. They failed to address those issues, but we have to deal with that. And so, might I emphasize, sir, that we must be patriotic. We must. But, you know, since 2015, since June 2015, sir, that anything positive started happening in Guyana about the AML-CFT regime. It is the first act of this new government to pass that bill into law. First act. And we will continue to ensure that Guyana is protected, whether the members on the upper side want that or not, sir. And we will not allow them to stymie our approaches in collaborating with the international financial community to ensure that we remedy all the deficiencies that were identified under the last government, sir. We are here to clean up the mess.
Another major piece of legislation passed in the National Assembly during the period of review was the Anti-Terrorism and Terrorist-Related Activities Bill. This bill criminalizes terrorism and terrorist-related activities.
It is the government's business to deal with criminality. It is this government's business to deal with money laundering. It is this government's business to deal with terrorism. And it is this government's business to present bill for the suppression of terrorism, anti-money and money laundering and criminality. If the other side feels comfortable that you could give succor to criminals, terrorists, and money launderers, you could frustrate this House by coming with this presentation you made today.
The 11th Parliament has been actively engaged during the past 7 months of the new government as it continues to work on strengthening the country's democracy. Parliament is the domain where the nation's business is represented and advanced by the representatives of the people. Guyanese can look forward to a very busy National Assembly in the 11th Parliament.
The coalition government views agriculture as vital to the prosperity of Guyana, especially with its large rural population. It is working to develop a modern agriculture sector by creating jobs and reducing the food import bill. Several achievements have been made in this regard.
Guyana continues to transform the agricultural sector through modernization and diversification. The country's fertile land presents enormous opportunities for growth and development in the economy. This potential is recognized by the government, thus, efforts are currently underway to fully maximize these opportunities. 2 of the country's main crops, rice and sugar, exceeded their target production, but the industries face their own challenges. Over 1 million tons of paddy, equivalent to 687,784 tons of rice, was produced. This was 8.27% higher than the production of paddy for 2014. For 2016, the rice sector will see heightened focus on increasing productivity.
As regards our projections for 2016, it is expected that the new varieties released will continue to contribute to improving the productivity of rice in Guyana in the coming years. It is foreseen that GRDB 12, GRDB 13, and GRDB 14 will continue to expand its acreage in 2016. The GRDB will be implementing a proactive program to manage red rice, which of course is a weed in the rice cultivation. Similarly, comprehensive studies will be done on the paddy bug menace and its management aimed at reducing losses. At least 500 varieties will be assessed from International Research Institute centers in 2016.
Sugar production also surpassed its target of 227,443 tons. The projection for 2016 is set as 242,287 tons, a 5% increase over the 2015 production. Recommendations from the Commission of Inquiry that examined the operations of Gaisuku will be put in force in 2016.
While the recommendations of the COI were many, with many options, it is government's view that the future of sugar is so important to the fortunes of Guyana and the Guyanese people to warrant as much discussion and consideration as possible in our quest to chart a way forward for the industry. Implementation of the approved recommendation will commence in 2016.
The fishing industry will promote aquaculture development in hinterland areas in 2016, and the illegal trade of toxic chemicals and pesticides will also be tackled. Meanwhile, attention will be given to increase artificial insemination services of cattle and breeding farms. Focus will also be on increasing meat and egg production. New spices and crops will also be developed during this year. These include expansion of orchard production and soybeans in the intermediate savannas and the operationalizing of a spice factory. Agricultural developmental plans will also materialize for Regions 7, 8, and 9. The National Drainage and Irrigation Authority will continue its mandate in improving the drainage network across Guyana.
Works are in the pipeline to be completed in 2016. Among these are the completion of the Northern Relief Channel, the Hope Dock 4, the continuation of the rehabilitation of intake structures at Ansgrove, Hope, Annandale, and Nancy, and relief sluices at Maduni and Sierra Joanna. That's the Cunyo operation on these ones. Construction of drainage structures at Upper Pomeroon, Charity, Paradise, Namrik, West Watuka. Revetment of DNI structures at Laguan, Wakenham, Hog Island, East Bank Essequibo, Buxton Friendship, West Bobis, etc.
The government is working rapidly to ensure the formulation and implementation of programs which will facilitate agricultural development across Guyana, in the quest to achieve food security and boost export of local produce.
Whilst 2015 saw some challenges for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, especially with regards to Venezuela's threat to Guyana's sovereignty, the ministry nonetheless recorded a successful year.
Foremost among the issues dealt with 2015 by the Foreign Affairs Ministry was the diplomatic effort to counter Venezuela's continuation of its unjust case against Guyana with its refusal to honor an international treaty to which they had agreed.
We were able to not merely call upon the United Nations Secretary General in his role as the good officer in the Geneva Agreement, but we were able to get them to put together meetings and to embark on a process by which the Secretary General is expected to identify a means of going forward and to set out a timetable that we expect to ultimately lead to resort to the International Court of Justice for bringing this controversy to a speedy and definitive end.
Emphasis was also placed on strengthening the administrative arrangements within the ministry with a view to improving the quality of representation received internationally and furthering the international policy. This saw participation in CARICOM, Commonwealth, and other heads of government meetings which focus on international cooperation. Further, Guyana's position within the European Union and the African Caribbean Pacific Group of States was strengthened. This pertained to issues which includes the Economic Partnership Agreement arrangements.
We had to work along with the Norwegians to try and, if you like, salvage the agreement between ourselves and the Norwegians, and to ensure that in the period ahead we will be able to fully access the funds which they committed in the first phase, the 245 million, and to ensure that it actually goes on projects that are relevant to what we were calling a low carbon development strategy. We also have worked with the European Union. As you know, the European Union had committed to Guyana a significant quantity of financial resources, but those resources were blocked for political reasons because Guyana had failed to implement a number of things that it had committed itself to at a general political level and also at the level of the industry, that is the sugar industry in particular. We have, as far as I'm concerned, now met all the commitments that we had given to the European Union. Those commitments pertain to reviewing the status and performance of the sugar industry and defining the next phase, how we would treat with the challenges and difficulties that it has. The commitments also related to obligations to pass legislation in the arena of anti-money laundering and protection from terrorism, and also in relation to procurement.
As the year progressed, representation was made at major international events such as the World Trade Organization Round, which saw an attempt to conclude the Doha Rounds. The Doha Round focused on establishing a framework for the removal of trade barriers. Guyana also contributed to the preparation and the negotiations in Paris under the COP21 conference.
Amongst the activities at the bilateral level, we had worked with the European Union to ensure that we got resources that had been agreed we would get, providing we met certain commitments. We've also worked quite assiduously with a number of the individual bilaterals, ranging from the US, which has provided support in the area of strengthening the Minister of Public Security's arena, also in relation to the AG's chambers and related activities. There's been assistance from the UK, considerable discussion in relation to the project which has been suspended in the past under the EU framework, in the context of security issues and the controversy over the refusal to sign the agreement. And there have been a number of, if you like, decisions taken in relation to matters which were in suspension, the acceptance of agreements for a number of countries within the region, outside of the region, Europe, Central Europe, Eastern Europe. So new ambassadors have been received and steps to cooperate. They've been with some of the traditional donors. In the case of Japan, for example, whilst we've had a running and ongoing program with Japan, in the last half of the year last year, the Japanese technical expert here engaged with our officers, and coming out of that has been a proposal from Japan to contribute to the attenuation of the flooding of Georgetown. And that is a process that is particularly interesting and useful in that it now brings in additional resources and skills from Japan.
With the foundation being laid for quality representation and an improved international image, 2016 will see Guyana strengthening relations with its southern neighbors.
The natural resources sector has initiated improvements in the services it offers to all stakeholders. Managing its many subsectors in a substantial manner will be emphasized going forward. The Ministry of Natural Resources, under the guidance of Minister Raphael Trotman, is seeking to ensure that all of the country's natural resources are used sustainably. This can only be done with input from all stakeholders and better regulation, according to the minister. He described the gold and the diamond mining industries, for example, as being somewhat in disarray.
As a citizen, I, like everyone, share the view that gold, of course, has its attractions, wealth, there's glitter, glamour, you know the life. But at the same time, you got a sense that things were not right. There are all kinds of anecdotes about bribes being paid or small miners being run off of lands or processing of papers taking months when they could have been done in days. And so, despite, yes, good gold production, in fact, we've done very well this year, despite what...
Exceeding the target.
Exceeding the target as of The end of the year would be just about 451,000 ounces, which is very good. But despite all of that, mining itself, the regulation and the management of the mining sector needs improvement, and so we're taking steps to improve not just the image but the substance of the management process.
Corruption is also among issues that need to be addressed, the minister stressed.
It has now become necessary for the minister's office to pay close attention to the granting or the approval of duty-free concessions for miners, and this arose after I was informed by a person I know well that for my signature to approve for excavators and other mining equipment, certain persons were requiring $3,000 for my signature. I was unaware that this was the fee being charged, and so I've arranged to start a process of duty-free concession hearings where the miners themselves will appear with members of the GGMC, with myself and other officials from the ministry, and we'll be able to speak to them about the granting of those concessions.
He spoke of the coalition government's move to ensure that all of the stakeholders, including smaller operators, have a fair deal in the industry. The coalition government is keen to have all Guyanese benefit as much as possible from the large foreign-based companies which have also invested heavily in the sector.
We want to make sure that taxes are paid and they respect the workers' rights, they pay their benefits, that their mining practices are safe. We don't have cyanide spills or anything like that. So we've been on the ground several times to these sites, making sure. We're quite impressed with the technology being brought to bear. We're impressed with the fact that Guyanese are getting jobs, and so we're happy about that. We're impressed with their shipments and their payment of their royalties, so things are working out, yes. And we're paying careful attention.
Focus will also be placed on the environment and areas on which mining is done. The ministry will continue to push for restoration as far as possible of mining sites.
Miners mine and they move on. The rivers get polluted, there are gaping holes left in the land, and there's an environmental bond of just $100,000, which we feel is a joke. So we will be reviewing that to ensure that miners pay a bond that is more realistic, and commensurate with the size of the operation. So if you don't fulfill your duties of restoring that bond that you left, will be used to take care of the management.
This will be replanting and so on.
Exactly. And then, of course, we want to make sure that mining is not done in a capricious, willy-nilly manner wherever you want to go. We're going to have zoned areas where the mining takes place.
Minister Trotman made mention of the local forestry sector. This, he said, is performing relatively well, but focus will be on sustainably managing this resource. The petroleum sector, he added, will play a major role in Guyana's development.
The oil and gas sector will be getting much attention from the ministry this year, and as you may be aware, the president of Exxon's exploration company, Mr. Stephen Greenlee, visited Guyana between yesterday and today, has since left, and with him was a team of executives coming from Houston, Texas. They met this morning with His Excellency David Granger and Ministers of Foreign Affairs, Minister of State, and Minister of Natural Resources, yours truly. And at that meeting, the President of Exxon briefed His Excellency on new developments taking place, the plans for ExxonMobil with regards to the Liza 1 well and the Stabroek block that Exxon has a concession for, and the exploratory work that will continue later this year. Of course, His Excellency took the opportunity to affirm or reaffirm Guyana's support for Exxon's work, and of course expressed the desire that everything will go well and without any interference, both from internal or external forces.
The ministry has been further strengthened with the appointment of Simona Brooms as minister within the ministry. With the strengthening of protocols and regulations, the ministry intends to improve its efficiency and offer all stakeholders a better service.